In the small town of Maplewood, where everyone knew each other, there was a woman named Karen. Karen was known as the neighborhood busybody. She was the leader of the Homeowners Association, often referred to as HOA. Karen took her job very seriously. She thought it was her duty to keep the neighborhood in line, which mostly meant telling people what to do and enforcing the rules about lawns, paint colors, and noise levels. One sunny Saturday morning, Mike Johnson, a friendly man in his 50s who loved his big backyard, decided to throw a barbecue party to celebrate his daughter Sarah's graduation. He invited family and friends, promising a fun day filled with laughter, delicious food, and good music. The sun was shining, and everyone was excited. As the guests began to arrive, Mike set up the grill and Sarah helped with the decorations. The smell of grilled burgers and hot dogs filled the air. Laughter and chatter created a joyful atmosphere, and it seemed that nothing could ruin this perfect day. But that was about to change. Across the yard, Karen watched. She was concerned about the noise levels, believing that a party was not appropriate for the peaceful neighborhood. She popped out of her house, wearing her signature sun hat and oversized sunglasses, to survey the scene. Her lips formed a tight line as she saw the party in full swing. "I can't let this go on," she muttered to herself. Instead of approaching Mike, she decided on a more extreme measure. She grabbed her phone and made a call to the local party bus company. "I need 3 buses. Fill them up with people and bring them to this address," she said, giving the details of Mike's home. Within the hour, the sound of music and laughter suddenly changed. 3 colorful buses pulled up in front of Mike's house, and out spilled a boisterous cheerleading team, a loud marching band, and a group of college kids ready to party. They marched straight into Mike's backyard, confusion spreading across the faces of Mike and his guests. "Hey, what's going on?" Mike exclaimed, trying to make sense of it all. "We heard there's a party here," one of the college kids shouted, joining the group around the grill. Karen watched from a distance, her heart racing with excitement as she believed her plan was working. But as more people flooded into Mike's backyard, it became chaos. Guests were pushed aside, and the cheerleaders started dancing, making it impossible for Mike to control the situation. "Move!" shouted one of the cheerleaders, bumping into Mike as she attempted to take over the music playlist. Mike's party was being hijacked, and he felt helpless. He looked around at the confused faces of his family and friends. His son, Jake, a 16-year-old with a love for basketball, stepped up. "Dad, let's just go with it. Maybe we can turn this into a huge party." Reluctantly, Mike agreed. He didn't want to ruin the day entirely. He turned to his grill, tossing more burgers on, and Sarah grabbed the music speakers, blasting her favorite playlist. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted from confusion to camaraderie as the 2 groups began to mingle. Meanwhile, Karen stood back, feeling victorious, thinking she could get rid of the party altogether. She looked around with pride, pleased that she had disrupted something she deemed inappropriate. But as the party started to grow, her excitement turned into panic. "You should call the police, Karen," shouted her neighbor, who was equally shocked by the sudden invasion. Karen's neighbor, Tom, had a mischievous glint in his eyes. He saw the gathering as a chance to poke fun at Karen's reign. "I think you might have bitten off more than you can chew." With frustration mounting, Karen dialed the police, not fully understanding the scene she had created. "There's a wild party here with a lot of strangers," she shouted into the phone. "You need to send someone." On the other side of the yard, Mike was trying to enjoy the moment. "Let's do a group photo," he suggested, pulling everyone together. As they lined up, the sound of sirens echoed through the neighborhood. Karen, realizing her mistake, felt a mix of dread and triumph. "Maybe I should cancel that call," she thought, but it was too late. When the police arrived, they were greeted with a scene of laughing people, dancing, and fun. Mike explained how the situation had unfolded, with the officers watching the chaos unfold. "Why are we here?" one of the officers asked Karen, who had a sheepish look on her face. "I thought it would get too out of hand," Karen admitted, realizing she couldn't blame anyone but herself. The officer chuckled, casting a judgmental gaze toward Karen. From what I see, everyone seems to be enjoying themselves. There's no problem here, he said, turning to Mike. Just keep it down, okay? As the officers left, whispers began to spread among the guests. What would happen to Karen? The party continued with even more energy, making Karen feel even smaller. Later that evening, Mike gathered everyone around for a toast. He thanked his unexpected guests, asserting, "Sometimes things don't go as planned, but they turn out for the best." Everyone cheered, raising their drinks. In a twist of fate, Karen faced complaints from her neighbors for causing such a commotion. It was time for her to face the music. To make matters worse, some angry neighbors decided to report her for using HOA funds for personal matters, believing she had wasted their money on the buses. The following week, Karen faced charges for her actions, and the local paper ran a story headlined, "HOA Karen's Party Bus Backfires." Mike found himself amused, thinking about the unexpected joy in the chaos, while Karen had to reconsider her ways. As for Mike and the town, they remembered that unforgettable day fondly. The day a party brought them all closer together, while Karen learned that sometimes, it's better to let things be rather than trying to control every little detail of life. And so, Maplewood carried on, one laugh, one mishap, and one party at a time. In the quiet town of Maplewood, where everyone knew each other, there lived a woman named Karen Thompson. Karen was the president of the Homeowners Association, HOA, and she took her job very seriously. She liked to keep things organized and tidy in the neighborhood. However, her dedication often crossed into meddling. The other neighbors had a name for her, HOA Karen. Across the street from Karen lived a man named Tom Harris. Tom was an easygoing guy who loved having friends over for barbecues and parties. His backyard was spacious and filled with green grass and bright flowers. It was a perfect spot for gatherings. However, Tom's fun-loving attitude didn't sit well with Karen. She often complained about the noise and wanted everything in the neighborhood to be quiet and calm. One sunny Saturday morning, while Tom prepared for a big birthday party for his daughter, Lucy, he noticed a strange sight. Karen was waving her hands a little too excitedly, sending messages to 3 big green buses parked at the edge of town. Tom squinted to see better. He could see people getting off the buses, chatting and laughing. "Hey, what's going on over there?" Tom wondered aloud. He turned to his neighbor, Mrs. Linda, who was gardening nearby. "Looks like Karen invited a crowd to the park," she said, her eyes widening. "That's a lot of people." Tom frowned. "The park is empty today, so why are they here?" Curiosity got the better of him. Tom walked over to get a closer look. The scene was wild. There were people of all ages, some carrying snacks, others bringing games and coolers. Tom spotted Karen directing the crowd, looking very pleased with herself. "Welcome to Maplewood," Karen shouted to the group. "Let's make this neighborhood fun." Tom couldn't believe it. "She's having a party on my land," he thought, feeling his anger bubble inside. He hurried back home to grab a cooler of drinks and some snacks. "If they're going to party on my property, I might as well join," he muttered. When Tom reached his yard, he saw that it was filled with people. Children ran around, laughing and playing tag. Adults were gathering near his grill, munching on burgers and talking loudly. Tom approached Karen, who was clearly in charge. Karen, what's happening here?" Tom asked, trying to keep his cool. "Oh, Tom, I thought I'd bring some life to the neighborhood," she replied with a big smile. "Isn't it great? This isn't your land. This is my yard," Tom said, surprised at how angry he felt. Karen waved her hand dismissively. "You're being too uptight. Just relax. Everyone is having fun." Tom took a deep breath. "I didn't agree to this. You can't just invite people here without asking me first." Karen rolled her eyes. "You're ruining the party vibe, Tom. Just enjoy the laughter." Tom stepped back, perplexed. Across the yard, his daughter Lucy was giggling with the new kids. Although the sight was sweet, Tom was also worried. What if someone got hurt? What if they broke something? Feeling frustrated, Tom decided to make a phone call. He dialed the police. "Hi, yes, I need help. There's a huge crowd on my property without my permission." Within minutes, The sound of sirens filled the air. Tom watched as 2 police cars pulled up. The officers stepped out, glancing around in confusion at the unexpected party. Karen, noticing the police, quickly approached them. "Hello, officers. There's no need for concern. We're just having a neighborhood celebration." One of the officers, Officer Matthews, raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? And you are?" "I'm Karen Thompson, the HOA president. We're all friends here," she said, gesturing to the group. Officer Matthews turned to Tom. "Is this true? Are they all your friends?" "No, officer. This is my yard, and I had no idea this was going to happen," Tom shouted, pointing toward the crowd. "I didn't invite anyone." The officers exchanged glances, trying to understand the situation. One of them began to take notes. "All right, we'll need to ask everyone to leave." Karen's face fell. "This is ridiculous. I was just trying to spread joy." "Joy doesn't come without permission," Officer Matthews stated firmly. "This is private property. Everyone needs to pack up and go." Murmurs of disbelief spread through the crowd. Many people started gathering their things, some complaining as they left. But few remained to help Tom. Lucy ran to her dad, her eyes filled with worry. "Daddy, what happened?" she asked, sadness in her voice. "It's okay, Lucy. Just a mix-up with Karen," he reassured her. When everyone had left, and the yard was silent again, Karen stood there, looking embarrassed. "I just wanted to have fun," she said quietly. "I get that, Karen, but this isn't how you do it," Tom replied gently. "Next time, ask for permission first." Suddenly, Officer Matthews cleared his throat. "Karen, I'll warn you this time, but next time you might face charges for trespassing if this happens again." Karen nodded, looking defeated. "I understand. I just wanted everyone to be happy." Tom took a deep breath, feeling a little sorry for her. "Just remember, there are ways to throw a party without causing trouble. Maybe we can throw a neighborhood event together next time." Karen raised her head, a small spark of hope in her eyes. "Really? You'd include me?" "Sure, but let's plan it right," Tom smiled. As the sun began to set over Maplewood, the 2 neighbors started discussing ideas. The laughter from earlier had faded, but a new friendship was about to begin. Together, they would work to create joyous memories that everyone in the neighborhood could enjoy, together and with permission. The sun beat down on my small farm, turning the dust to a golden haze. Life was simple. I grew vegetables, raised a few chickens, and enjoyed the peace and quiet. That was until Karen moved into the fancy new house at the edge of our properties. Karen. Just the name made my eye twitch. She was the president of the Homeowners Association, even though my farm wasn't part of it. She made it her personal mission to improve our little corner of the world, one complaint at a time. My chickens were too noisy, my vegetables were unsightly, and my scarecrow was offensive. I tried to ignore her, but Karen was relentless. It all came to a head one Saturday afternoon. I was harvesting tomatoes when I heard a rumble in the distance. It grew louder, and soon 3 buses were chugging down the dirt road towards my farm. They parked right in front of my gate, and people started pouring out. Not just any people, but dozens of them, dressed in party clothes, carrying coolers and lawn chairs. I stood there, dumbfounded, as they marched onto my land like they owned the place. "What's going on?" I finally managed to ask, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and confusion. A woman with a bright pink hat and a clipboard stepped forward. "We're here for the party," she announced cheerfully. "Karen said it would be a blast." Karen. Of course, it was Karen. I pushed my way through the crowd, trying to find her. There she was, standing near the buses, a smug look on her face. "Karen, what is the meaning of this?" I demanded. "I'm just trying to bring some life to this boring place," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "These are all members of the HOA. They deserve a fun day in the country. On my land? Without my permission." I couldn't believe what was happening. "This is trespassing. You can't just bring a bunch of strangers onto my property." Karen shrugged. "Oh, relax. It's just a little party. Besides, she leaned in closer. I thought you could use the company. That was it. Something inside me snapped. Get off my land. I yelled, my voice echoing across the field. All of you, get out now. The partygoers looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Karen just laughed. Don't listen to him, she told them. He's just being grumpy. Let's get this party started. I knew I couldn't reason with her. I pulled out my phone and called the police. I have a large group of people trespassing on my property, I told the dispatcher. And the woman who organized it is refusing to leave. It took a while for the police to arrive, but when they did, they took one look at the scene and knew something was wrong. They spoke to me, then to Karen, and then to some of the partygoers. It turned out that Karen had told everyone that I had given her permission to use my land for the party. The police quickly shut down the party and ordered everyone to leave. Karen was furious. She argued with the officers, insisting that she had done nothing wrong. But the police weren't buying it. They arrested her for trespassing, inciting a riot, and a few other charges I didn't even know existed. As they led her away in handcuffs, Karen glared at me. You haven't heard the last of this, she shouted. I'll get you for this. I watched as the buses pulled away, leaving behind a field littered with trash and a sense of disbelief. Had this really just happened? Was Karen really in jail? The next few days were a whirlwind. The story of the HOA Karen's party bus invasion went viral. News crews showed up at my farm, wanting to interview me about the incident. My phone rang nonstop with calls from friends, family, and even strangers who wanted to offer their support. The HOA, realizing the PR nightmare they were facing, quickly distanced themselves from Karen. They issued a statement saying that they did not condone her actions and that she had been suspended from her position as president. Meanwhile, Karen sat in jail, awaiting her court date. Her lawyer tried to argue that she was just trying to bring people together, and that I was overreacting. But the judge wasn't sympathetic. He set a high bail and ordered her to stay away from my property. The trial was a circus. The courtroom was packed with reporters and curious onlookers. The prosecution presented a strong case, highlighting Karen's history of harassing me and her blatant disregard for the law. Karen took the stand in her own defense, claiming that she had only wanted to do something nice for the HOA members and that I had misunderstood her intentions. But her story fell apart under cross-examination. The jury deliberated for hours before finally reaching a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Karen was sentenced to community service, a hefty fine, and anger management classes. I sat in the courtroom, listening to the verdict, a sense of relief washing over me. It was finally over. Karen was finally being held accountable for her actions. As she was led out of the courtroom, Karen turned to me, her eyes filled with rage. This isn't over, she hissed. I'll get my revenge. I didn't say anything. I just watched her go, knowing that I had done the right thing. I had stood up to a bully and won. Life on the farm slowly returned to normal. The news crews left, the phone stopped ringing, and the dust settled. But things were different now. I was no longer the quiet, unassuming farmer who could be pushed around. I had learned to stand up for myself, and I wouldn't let anyone take advantage of me again. Of course, I still worried about Karen. I knew she was angry and vengeful, and I couldn't help but wonder what she would do next. But I refused to live in fear. I had my farm to run, my vegetables to grow, and my chickens to feed. I wouldn't let Karen ruin my life. A few months later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Karen. I hesitated before opening it, my heart pounding in my chest. What could she possibly want now? I opened the letter and began to read. To my surprise, it wasn't a threat or a demand. It was an apology. Karen wrote that she had finally realized the error of her ways and that she was truly sorry for the pain she had caused me. She explained that her anger and resentment had stemmed from her own insecurities and that she had been trying to control everything around her because she felt out of control in her own life. She said that she was now in therapy and was working on becoming a better person. I finished reading the letter, a tear rolling down my cheek. Couldn't believe it. Karen was actually apologizing. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope for her after all. I didn't know if I could ever truly forgive her, but I appreciated her apology. It was a start, and maybe someday we could even be neighbors again. But for now, I was content with the peace and quiet of my farm, knowing that I had stood up for what was right and that justice had been served. It was a regular Saturday morning. I woke up to the sound of birds chirping and the smell of freshly cut grass. Living in the countryside had always been a dream of mine, and after years of saving, I finally bought a beautiful piece of land with a cozy little house. The peace and quiet were unmatched, or so I thought. My name is Emily, and I work as a software engineer. My life is pretty simple. Work, read, and enjoy the occasional hike. But my quiet life took a nosedive when I met Karen, the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association, HOA. Karen lived in the subdivision about a mile from my property. Even though my land wasn't part of her HOA, she seemed to think she had jurisdiction over everything within a 5-mile radius. She was the kind of person who complained about leaves falling on her lawn and children laughing too loudly. It started with small things. Karen would leave passive-aggressive notes on my mailbox about my unruly garden or the eyesore shed I had built. I ignored them. I was on my property doing what I wanted, and her rules didn't apply to me. But Karen didn't give up easily. One afternoon, she cornered me while I was checking my mail. "Emily," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "I must insist you trim those hedges. They're bringing down property values." I sighed. "Karen, I'm not part of your HOA. I can do what I want with my hedges." Her face turned red. "You might not be part of the HOA, but you still need to be considerate of your neighbors." "I am being considerate," I replied. "I'm just living my life." That's when the real trouble began. Karen seemed to take my refusal as a personal affront. The notes became more frequent and aggressive. She started calling the local authorities, reporting me for everything from noise complaints to illegal dumping, all of which were baseless. The police, familiar with Karen's antics, would show up, shrug, and leave. Then came the party. I had planned a small get-together with a few friends. We set up a barbecue, put on some music, and enjoyed the evening. It wasn't anything wild, just a relaxed gathering. But, as usual, Karen found a reason to interfere. Around 8 p.m., I saw a bus approaching my property. Then another and another. 3 buses in total, each filled with people I had never seen before. They started pouring out, carrying coolers, blankets, and lawn chairs. It looked like an invasion. Confused and alarmed, I walked over to the first person I saw. "Excuse me," I said. "What's going on?" The woman smiled. "We're here for the party." Karen said there would be food, music, and good company. My jaw dropped. Karen had organized a flash mob party on my land without my permission. I couldn't believe the audacity. I found Karen standing near the buses, a smug look on her face. "What is the meaning of this?" I demanded. "I decided you needed a little excitement in your life," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "And these lovely people needed a place to unwind." I was furious. "Get off my property, Karen, and take your party with you." "Now, Emily, don't be rude," she said. "We're all just trying to have a good time." But I had reached my limit. "I'm calling the police," I said, pulling out my phone. Karen's smugness wavered. "You wouldn't dare." I dialed 911 and reported the trespassers. While waiting for the police, I tried to reason with the partygoers, explaining that this was all a misunderstanding orchestrated by Karen. Some were understanding, others were confused, but most were just there for a free party. When the police arrived, they were just as stunned as I was. After a brief conversation with me and an increasingly agitated Karen, they ordered everyone to leave. It took a while, but eventually, the buses pulled away, leaving behind a mess of trash and bewildered expressions. I thought that was the end of it, but Karen wasn't done yet. Over the next few days, she launched a full-scale smear campaign against me. She spread rumors about me being a drug dealer, a hoarder, and even an animal abuser. She posted flyers around the neighborhood with my photo and fabricated stories about my supposed misdeeds. I was devastated. My reputation was being destroyed, and I felt helpless. But then, something unexpected happened. Some of the people who had been at the party started reaching out to me. They had realized that Karen had manipulated them and were appalled by her behavior. They offered to help me clear my name. Together, we gathered evidence of Karen's harassment and her scheme to throw a party on my land. We collected the flyers, the emails, and the testimonies of the partygoers. Armed with this evidence, I went to the police and filed a formal complaint against Karen. The police took my complaint seriously. They interviewed Karen and the witnesses, and it quickly became clear that she had been behind everything. She was charged with trespassing, harassment, and inciting a riot. The news spread like wildfire. The local media picked up the story, and soon, Karen was the talk of the town. The HOA members were outraged, and they voted to remove her from her position. Her reputation was ruined, and she became a pariah in the community. As for me, I was relieved. The charges against Karen were a vindication of everything I had been through. It wasn't just about the party. It was about standing up to a bully who thought she could get away with anything. The trial was a spectacle. Karen tried to deny everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge found her guilty on all counts and sentenced her to community service and a hefty fine. She was also ordered to undergo anger management therapy. After the trial, Karen moved away. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. Without her constant meddling, the community became a more peaceful and pleasant place to live. I learned a valuable lesson from this experience. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself even when it's difficult. And sometimes the most unlikely allies can come to your aid. Life on my land returned to normal. The birds still chirped, the grass still grew, and the peace and quiet were finally restored. I even started a community garden, where neighbors could come together and grow their own vegetables. It was a symbol of unity and cooperation, a stark contrast to the divisiveness that Karen had tried to create. And every now and then, when I'm tending to my garden, I can't help but smile, knowing that justice had been served and that even the most persistent bullies can be brought to account.